All right, I think we'll begin, and then I'll keep track of those who aren't here and try and get them into the system. Hello, Brian. Nice to see you. All right, so let's mute everybody except for me. Okay. Oh, is that Bill? Billy, is that you?
Yes,
hi.
hi.
Bill Goodman, my good friend. All right, very good.
Good.
Nice
Thanks, Rabbi. I'm so glad.
I'm glad to have you, my friend.
Thanks.
Oh, sure. All right. So I invite everybody maybe to mute right now. And I just want to have a word or two of welcome. Mike Canovitz, fantastic. All right. Welcome one and all, and especially our friends from the Jewish Council of Urban Affairs, the JCUA, and I'm pleased to see you all and to have you here to talk about fair tax amendments. And I was thinking about Judaism and taxation in general, and I came across a piece of Talmud. Not sure exactly what the Masechet is, but it says this about our general obligation to obey legitimate laws, especially those that pertain to taxation that are used for our benefit. Shmuel stated, the law of the land is the law. Rabbah said, observe that this must be true, for the government fells trees and builds bridges, and we cross them. So the explanation of this particular Talmudic passage is that if it were illegitimate for the government to appropriate private property through taxes, vis-a-vis felling trees, it would be equally illegitimate for us to make use of stolen property by crossing the bridges. So there's a serious discussion about taxation and legitimate taxation, and clearly when there are those who are making lots and lots of money or not paying their fair share, and there are those who aren't making as much money but maybe paying more than their share, we have inequity. Inequity leads to injustice, and JCUA, of course, is passionate about justice and conquering injustice. In this case, as it relates to unfair taxation. So I'm pleased to have you all here from JCUA, and my thanks to you for your presence, as well as those from Emmanuel Congregation, any other congregation represented here. We welcome you, Bruchim Habayim, and I'd be remiss if I didn't wish each of you Zis and Pesach, a very happy and joyous Passover season, and stay well and continue the struggle. I think I've got everybody. I'm going to try to find one person who's not on I was expecting, but I'm going to turn it over now, I believe, to Julia. So Julia, unmute yourself and...
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm really excited to be here in front of you all. I was just telling Emma this on the side. If I have a sheen of sweat, it's because I was just making matzah. And you have to do it in 18 minutes to make sure it's kosher for Passover. So I'm also, thank God you can't see me from like my waist down because I'm also covered in flour because I was not wearing an apron. So very, very Passover themed as we begin this presentation. So to kind of kick us off, as a rabbi, let us in to make sure if you aren't on mute to mute yourselves just so that we can really be focused and present together. I will ask that everyone take a moment to introduce themselves. If you can say your name and also if what pronoun you prefer. If folks feel comfortable doing that, we can either do that in the chat if you'd like, if you're not sure how to take yourself off mute, or we can take ourselves off mute just so we can all get to know each other a little bit. One of the things we talk about at JCUA is making sure to lead with the relational, that our relationships are really important before we dig into this work that's so important. So as I stated, my name is Julia Logan, and I use she, her pronouns. Rabbi, may I have you maybe, I know you'll be saying their names for them, but maybe have you take yourself off mute and reintroduce yourself, if you knew what pronouns you use, and then maybe
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Firstly, I was remiss not to recognize the presence of Sabrina Goldsmith, who is not only connected with JCUA, but also Emmanuel Congregation, one of our madrichot, our esteemed madrichot, teacher's assistants, and a really good person, well loved by her students. So Sabrina, thank you for being here and being such a justice maven. And my name is Craig Morantz. I'm a Reform rabbi. I serve Emmanuel Congregation almost 4 years now. And I am pleased to shepherd a community that cares a lot about being a collective force for good. We use that phrase often, but it's really important that we live up to it. And so one of the ways that we see ourselves living up to it is through our collaboration with JCUA. So I'm pleased to welcome you all here. And in particular, Sabrina, I'm proud of you and your colleagues at JCUA. So thank you all. Nice to be here with you. How's that?
Perfect. Great. And then actually just for time, I want to make sure that we get through the presentation. If folks want to maybe, if they want to say kind of why they are interested, why they came here tonight, if you want to put that in the chat, and then we can kind of read through those. I can read some of those if folks know how to use the chat. It will be, I'm trying to see, if everyone's in full screen, you can see there's sort of a bubble with 3 dots in it. And if you click on that, it'll open up the chat. And if folks maybe want to share why they decided to come tonight, so we can kind of see why we're all here. Great, curious to hear what the initiative is about. Fantastic. Love that an hour of Torah a day keeps a doctor away. So true. Campaign sounded interesting and meaningful. Great, love that. Maybe read through a few more. Folks want to share. Hi, Carol, member of Emmanuel Congregation.
Hey. Hang on there. It's
Hi, Rabbi. How are you?
You.
I was muting myself. I didn't realize.
Great.
I'm
One of my
Bill,
more
member-
Hi there. Can you hear
How
me?
are you?
Here, I see.
Go ahead, Bill.
You know what? Can you hear me
I'm
now?
Bill Goodman.
Yeah,
I'm a
I
member
can
of
hear you.
Emmanuel
Oh, okay.
Congregation.
I must have my
You can
volume
call me
down.
Bill, and invited
Hi,
by
Sabrina.
Rabbi Morant, who's a
Hi,
good
Sabrina.
friend of mine, too.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Glad to see you. Glad to
It sounds
see
like we're expecting
Great.
some of your congregation to come
All right,
tonight too.
well, we'll get
Yeah,
started.
that's
So
about
glad to
10
have you all
people.
here.
So hopefully they'll be able to like figure their
so,
way into the system.
That's great.
Just with
Emma,
one
if
person
you'll
today.
move us to our next slide, please.
I'll have to call him in 4 minutes if I don't see him,
Great.
you know.
Awesome. So I'm just going to tell us a little bit
So
about
you probably know whether or
what
not
the
there's mention
JCUA is.
of
So
Zoom
JCUA
in the
stands
Talmud to
for
permit a
the
minion.
Jewish Council on Urban Affairs.
I was like
it was
wondering
founded
actually
in
about that. You know,
1964,
technically count.
really in reaction
I remember
to poverty,
I had a friend
racism,
who told
and
me that at summer camp or
anti-Semitism,
something, they called someone
in
in on the
partnership with
phone
Chicago's diverse communities.
and they counted that.
Specifically,
yeah, so I've been
we were
thinking about
started
this. I haven't asked anybody.
in
but,
reaction
you
to
know, I wonder,
lending
and I know
practices
that's, you know,
for Black
it's
families on the south
problematic,
side of
obviously,
Chicago,
do a Zoom
and
minion
making sure that
regardless on,
Black
like,
families were able
Shabbat,
to own
right?
homes
It's
and not just
essentially
rent.
impossible,
And so
given
Right.
that's
halachic
part of our,
restrictions.
that's our
What
founding
if you like
history.
set it
And
up
one of
like
the things that we do
Friday
as an
at 4
organization
o'clock
is
and then just
we,
didn't turn the video or
have
audio
members. So
Would that
Ari,
count?
Sabrina and I are members
You know,
of
I don't know. You know, it's just
JCUA, and
interesting-
we all get to
interesting.
choose
Otherwise,
what
could you never
our
have a minion until like
campaigns are as
stay
an
in
organization.
place or whatever
So
is
this year, one
fixed?
of our major campaigns we're focusing on is
There
the
we
Fair
go.
Tax
Hello.
Hi, Emma.
Campaign, which we will definitely talk
Hi,
a
Emma.
lot about
Craig Morantz.
very
Nice to see
soon.
you.
Hello.
We also work with police accountability and immigration
Yes.
reform,
There are definitely
as well
some
as a racism
synagogues
gang
and
database. So really
congregations
important
that
work
are
here in
kind of
Chicago. Great to see,
waiving
Carol,
or
that you're also a
temporarily
member
waiving
of
their
JCUA. Fantastic. You
usual
can like see some of the chat, so I'll try to
approaches so
refer
that they
to them
can
if
still
I can.
congregate, basically.
Emma, if you want to
if
go
only
to the next
virtually.
slide for me.
I'm sure you've seen that around.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, and I was
So,
like wondering,
the reason
like a
why we
daily
had this
minion,
slide up here
I
is
think
that
there's probably more give.
JCUA is part of a coalition of 22 groups. That's as of December 1st, 2019.
I started the Daf
Vote Yes
Yomi
for
in
Fair
this last
Tax
tractate
ballot
on
committee.
Shabbat, and it's interesting to.
I'm realizing now, and maybe I just missed this part.
It's
of my
interesting to
notes,
see
that I
when the
haven't quite
rabbis
explained
are
what the Fair Tax Act is
permitting
yet. Is that
something
my
because
job?
the spirit
Emma,
is there,
that,
and
you
other
give me a
times when
thumbs
they
up? Is that
don't
what I'm
permit it
supposed to be
because the
doing?
letter
You're
of
not
the
quite
law
yet.
has
Great.
not been.
Okay.
We'll be getting into it in a little bit. Well, yeah, you
I
can
feel
just
like
talk about
you
this
could always
slide, and I'll
interpret
explain the
something
fair tax
differently.
referendum soon.
Great. Okay.
I think
Perfect.
these
Thanks.
times are
We're learning as we go here, folks. So
definitely
thanks for
calling us
bearing
to a
with
different
us.
level of
So what I think is
practice.
great about
It
this
will-
is you
it
can
will
see
push
we're in
all
a
of
group
us.
of
Easier
really
when you're not
fantastic
halachic.
organizations that are also backing
Uh,
the Fair Tax Act, the Fair
but
Tax
even
campaign.
those who are, I think we'll have
So
to sort of
you
think
might see
about
some organizations you recognize up
how
here,
this
like
all
One
works
North
going
Side,
forward.
the People's Lobby,
Hi,
United
Deborah.
Working Families, the
What's happening?
Coalition, Chicago
I'm
Coalition
good.
for the
Hello,
Homeless.
John.
So we're in a really good
Welcome.
company, and other organizations
Deborah,
that
welcome.
are supporting this
All right.
this
So I do
tax
have
act.
I'm
Um,
expecting
So the
others.
biggest kind of
One
broad
person I
strokes
haven't
of
been
this
able to
is
get a
that
hold
in
to,
November we're
even
going to
though
be
he said he was going
voting
to be here, so
to
hopefully he'll pop
change
in.
the Illinois
Some
Constitution,
other
which
people will
We're
wait.
JB
expecting
Pritzker has
one or
done.
two other JCUA
But
members
because this
to
is
join.
change the
Great.
Constitution,
Well,
we
great.
have to vote
So
on it as
we will have
Illinois
what we
residents.
have.
To right now,
One thing I've
our
learned,
income tax
just
is
so you
a
know,
flat tax. We're all taxed at the same
oh, I better
amount,
let somebody
and
in.
we will be voting on to make this a
Luke is
graduated
here.
income tax. So instead of having folks
We may
all pay the
have
same amount of
a
taxes, no
broad
matter how much
audience,
money
but
you make,
after our
if you make
meeting,
$20,000 a year, if you make
when people
$2
go
million
and they
a
look at
year,
this video
everyone's
later,
right now in the state of Illinois is paying the same tax.
we end up having
And so
services
this change will make it so that we're a graduated
online,
income tax.
and so many people are
So we wanna
there,
maybe
and
move to the next one.
afterward, it like balloons up, like 5 times more people.
So here we have, I would love to have 3
suspect, we'll
folks
put this, I'm recording
share
it
out,
for
and
everybody's
really grounding, obviously,
FYI,
where we are in this time.
because I'd like
as
to post it,
folks are in our homes,
you
we're
don't
sheltering
mind,
in
on our
place.
YouTube
Would
page.
love to have a few people share out reflections
So,
for
let's
these
see.
questions.
Hello,
The first
everybody.
question is, where would you want to prioritize investment if there was more money in the state budget?
Okay,
And the
now
second
we're starting
question
to pick
is,
up
how
here.
does the COVID-19
It's only
pandemic
7:01.
impact your viewpoint? And Rabbi, I actually think you might have the capability to do this.
At some point,
Can
I'm
you
going to
just
pause. I'm
mute
going to have
everyone
to.
for now? So I'm getting some feedback. I don't know if you
Somebody's,
know how to do that. But we might do that just so we don't have any background noise.
Somebody may need help calling
Except
in.
for me, I'll re-unmute myself so you can hear
It's
me.
kind of a special job now,
So
is
if
to get
folks
people
want to,
into
maybe in
the Zoom
the
meeting.
chat or
Some people find it very intuitive and just get right in.
want to share some of the reactions to these
we
questions.
have a bunch of people
or
don't
you
have
can take yourselves off mute.
internet or
Again,
computer for that
where
matter.
where
but
would
they
you
have a
want
phone,
to prioritize
thankfully.
investment if there was more
So we
money in
can
the
call
state
and get them
budget?
in.
And how does the COVID-19 pandemic impact your viewpoint? So I'd love to hear from a few folks from these questions.
Hey, Ben.
So with your permission, I'd like to just wait a couple more minutes.
Because of COVID-19.
Sure.
And then,
Great question.
Ari, are you our main
No,
presenter
So
today?
more
Or
money
Sabrina,
for
our main
emotional
presenter?
education and mental
we
health. That's where
we
you
are
wanna
sharing a
prioritize that
presentation,
money.
but
Great.
Okay.
yeah,
Also,
So
emergency
I'll
medical
ask
care,
you to
non-emergency medical care
make
for
proper
more Chicago
introduction
South Sides.
sure.
of
Love
yourself, just because
You can see
Urban
Julia,
gardening,
who's down here.
great.
She'll be introducing all of
Yeah,
us
we're
because she's
definitely only
kicking off the
beginning to
whole thing.
appreciate
She's
the
got
damage
headphones on.
from COVID-19 and
I'll be picking
understanding
up in the middle, and then
larger
Sabrina
impact.
comes in later on.
all right.
think
So
that's
I'll
all three.
introduce
Anybody
you.
else wanna
I had
share?
one small word of introduction
great.
just by to welcome you.
Money
and,
for homeless and hunger programs for
a thought I
trips
wanna
that come from
share.
Texas.
Yeah.
About
Great.
the evening, and then it's
Fantastic.
Julia. I'll have Julia come on and.
Great. So I think, this
Hello,
this
Luke.
reaction really, thank you so much for sharing. And I think this really helps
Deborah's
ground us for
iPad?
the larger conversation and understanding that we have a long way to go and the things that we need to fund in Illinois, and also understanding that
It's me, Debbie
this
Mitchell.
Oh,
pandemic
hi,
is really
Debbie. Pleased to see
impacting
you.
what our state is capable of
Are you doing
right
well
now
post
and what we'll be capable of the future.
part one
So now I'm going to
of Aviva's bat
pass
mitzvah?
it over to Ari, who will lead our
Kind of
next
bat
section.
mitzvah-ish. Felt pretty real to me, at least the first part
Hey
of it.
everybody, I should be
Oh, and there's
unmuted
Brian.
now.
Fantastic.
If I can get a thumbs up from someone. If you're like me,
Yep.
I'm looking forward to tonight because it is the most structured part of today.
One more minute.
It's the only thing that's been giving me
One more
grounding all
minute.
day besides dinner.
There's Deborah.
And I still took a mint, even though I knew it was going to be
starting to fill in
just a
my
Zoom call.
list of
So
people I
really
knew was going to
prepared.
RSVP.
It's great to see everybody. Thank you for doing this. What we're going to talk about right
doing
now
a lot more
is
nowadays
the referendum
to,
itself that we've
RSVP
been
so
talking
that
about,
we
the fair
can
tax bill.
make
And I'm
sure
going to explain, give you a couple of different perspectives on it.
He comes in.
And if you have something to take notes
when he
with,
comes in,
to
it's gonna
ask questions later,
cause
that's
trouble.
fine. We'll put in some time to entertain those questions. But I'm going to try to go through at a decent enough clip so that Bill, who's on the phone and doesn't get to see the slides, doesn't lose the thread of what we're talking about.
All right, I think we'll begin, and then I'll keep track of those
So
who aren't here and
tonight,
try and
when
get
you're
them into
thinking
the
about
system.
the state of social service funding in Illinois, a lot of you
Hello,
have already
Brian.
talked about
Nice to see
things
you.
that are getting hit with various deficits that have been
All right, so
defunded
let's,
or underfunded over
let's
the
mute
years.
everybody
And all of us are
except for me.
concerned about how
Okay. Oh,
COVID-19
is
is
that
going
Bill?
to affect this in the future.
Billy, is that you?
Yes,
What-
yes,
Oh,
hi.
What's
good
important
man,
about the
my
fair
good
tax
friend. All right,
referendum
very good.
is that if
Good.
voters
Thanks,
get
Rabbi, I'm so
politicians
glad.
to make this
Glad to have you, my
constitutional
friend.
change,
Thanks.
it will
Oh, sure.
permit them
All right.
to
So,
create a whole new revenue
invite
stream
everybody maybe to
in
mute
Illinois
right now.
that can help
I just
the
want to have
budgets
a word or
immensely.
two.
In fact, if you go back before
welcome.
COVID-19, some of the
Mike
early
Canada,
budgeting
fantastic.
messaging that Pritzker was putting out there was
All right.
already hopefully counting on some money that was coming.
Welcome one and all,
I
and
apologize.
especially our friends.
Money that was already
from the
slated
Jewish
to
Council of
come
Urban
pending the
Affairs,
passage of
the
this bill. So
JCUA,
he's in
and
favor
pleased
of
to
this.
see you all.
Other
and,
politicians are in favor of it. And it could help
to
to
have you
support some of those
here,
same issues that you talked about before.
to talk
Next
about
slide,
fair
please.
tax amendments. And I was thinking about
this is coming up for
Judaism
voter
and
approval on
taxation in
November
general.
3rd. And
I came
it'll
across
be
a
on your
piece of
ballot
Talmud.
along with the presidential
Not
election.
sure
that I know is
exactly
on
what the
everybody's
Masechet
minds.
is, but
So we should have decent turnout for
it
this, but
says
we need to
this
make sure
about,
that voters are educated
our general
about the
obligation
importance
to
of this, so that
obey
they don't blow off the
legitimate
referendum
laws,
when they see it.
especially those
A lot
that
of the things that are
pertain
down
to
ballot don't get the proper
taxation,
attention. Presidential
that are
elections
used
do
for our
get
benefit.
do get a lot of voter turnout.
Shmuel
This
stated,
slide,
the law of
Bill,
the
we're showing
land
a
is the
difference
law.
between equality and
Rabba
equity.
said, observe that
Instead
this
of
must be
explaining the whole
true, for the
graphic to
government
you, I'd
fells
rather you
trees
just walk away with
and
the
builds bridges,
understanding
and we
that
cross
while
them.
a
So the
tax that asks everyone to pay
explanation
the
of
same
this particular
percentage
Talmudic
doesn't
passage
necessarily
is
mean that you're
that
taxing
if it were
everybody according
legitimate
to
for the
their needs,
illegitimate for the government
or
to
that you're
appropriate
funding
private
people according
property
to their
for
needs.
taxes,
We have an equal
vis-a-vis
tax.
felling
We don't
trees,
have
it would
an
be equally
equitable tax.
illegitimate for us to
We're
make
actually
use
taking
of
more from people
stolen
who have
property by
less,
crossing the bridges.
despite the equal percentage.
So there's a serious
And so you can think about equity
discussion
in both in
about
terms of
taxation and
what
legitimate
we're
taxation.
asking people to
And,
pay in terms of taxes,
clearly,
but also in
when
terms of
there are
how we're
those who
funding
are
things.
making
We talk
lots
about
and
equity
lots
in
of money or
schools a
not
lot,
paying their
whether
fair
people are getting
share,
what they need.
and there are those who
Next
aren't
slide,
making as
please.
much money, but maybe paying more than their share.
So since
we have inequity.
since a progressive tax is
Inequity
based
leads to
on
injustice.
the ability to
And,
pay,
JCUA, of course,
it may seem like it's
is
fair to ask
passionate
everybody to
about
pay this
justice
4.95%
and conquering
income tax that goes
injustice.
across
In
the
this
board.
case, as it
But when you
relates
look a
to
little bit
unfair
closer, you'll
taxation.
find
So
that people
I'm
who are in
pleased
lower
to
income brackets are actually giving away
have you all here from
a bigger
JCUA,
share of their
and
income. It's not a bigger share in
thanks to
terms
you
of
for your
percentage
presence,
because, as we discussed,
as well
it's
as
flat.
those from
But
Emmanuel Congregation, any other
that
congregation represented
4.95%
here.
matters a lot
We
more
welcome
to
you,
people who
Bruchim
are bringing in
Habayim,
less money.
and
Let's
I'd be
flip to the
remiss
next
if I didn't
slide.
wish each of you Zis and Pesach. Very
So
happy and
take a look at this. The
joyous
blue
season.
stripes that you
And,
see
stay
in
well.
the first and
Continue the
last
struggle.
bars there
I
is a
think I
little
got
bit confusing.
everybody.
That's actually
I'm going to
meant
try
to
to
just be
find
the
one person
texture
who's not on. I
of
was
the
expecting.
coding. It's not actually
But,
showing a
I'm
broken
going to
bar
turn it over
there.
now, I believe.
But what I want you to
Julia.
understand from this is that
Julia,
if you look at the
unmute
bottom,
yourself
you'll see that the
Yeah.
first four bars are
Hi, everyone.
equal
Good
20,
evening.
20%
Really excited
of,
to be here
of the total
in front of you all.
body
I
of
was just
Illinois
telling Emma this on the
taxpayers.
side. If I have
And then it
a
gets
sheen
divided
of
and
sweat
divide
because I was
until you
just
see the
making
very
matzah.
top
You have to do it
1%,
in 18
and
minutes
how
to make
much
sure it's
money
kosher for
in terms of
Passover.
income,
So I'm also, thank God
what
you can't see
income
me
ranges
from like
each of
my
those
waist down because I'm
percentiles
also
is,
covered in flour
is
because I was
bringing
not
in.
wearing the aprons.
And that
So
lowest
very
20%
Passover themed time as
constitutes
we begin
the
this
biggest
presentation.
portion of Illinois
Um,
payers.
So
And the
to
top
kind of pick us
1%
off,
is the smallest,
as
and
a rabbi let us
they're,
in,
and they're
to make
earning
sure
the
if you aren't
most,
on
and yet
mute
they're
to mute
still
yourselves
paying
just so that we
a
can really
rather
be focused
small
and
percentage.
present
So
together.
this is mainly to show you
I will
first
ask
just
that
how many
everyone take a moment to introduce
what the
themselves.
percentage
If you can
breakdown is of the
say
taxpayers in Illinois.
your name,
Let's
and
go on to the next
also
slide.
what pronoun you prefer.
So when you
if
think about
folks
the
feel comfortable
burden
doing
on
that,
lower income
we
Illinoisans,
can either do that in the chat if
imagine
you'd like,
that
if you're not sure how to take yourself off mute, or
imagine that you're walking out
we
of
can take
Target
ourselves off mute
when you were only
just so we can
able to
all
get your
get to
hands
know each other a
on
little
one
bit.
roll of toilet paper.
One of the things we
And
talk
you're
about at
walking next to somebody
JCUA
else who
is
was able to
making sure
walk
to
away
lead
with
with the
1,000
relational, that our
rolls of toilet
relationships are really
paper.
important.
And Governor Pritzker
Before
comes
we
up to
dig
you
into
and says,
okay, this
can
work
you each
that's
give
so
me
important.
your
So as I
percentage?
stated,
And you both
my
tear
name
off
is Julia Logan,
4.95%
and
of
I
your toilet
use
paper and
she,
give it
her
to him.
pronouns.
And he says, oh, no, wait a
Rabbi,
minute.
may I
You
have
with
you
the
maybe,
1,000 rolls of toilet
I know
paper? That's
you'll
not
be
fair.
saying their
You need
names
to
for
give
them,
a
but
little
maybe
bit
have
more.
you take
Because
yourself off mute and
4.95% of this one
yourself,
roll, that's going to hurt this
use, and
person.
then maybe
Sure.
And we all know what a frightening
Firstly,
currency toilet paper has
I
become.
was remiss not to
So we want to make sure
recognize the
that we're
presence of
protecting the
Sabrina
people at the
Goldsmith,
bottom
who's
and that they're getting
not only
that they're able to
connected
keep
with
what they
JCUA,
need to
but also
survive.
Manual Congregation,
Because the people at the
one of
top
our
are going to have plenty
madrichot,
left over
our
to
esteemed
do
madrichot
well more
teacher's
than
assistants,
survive.
and a really good person, well loved by
All right. Next slide, please.
students. So Sabrina, thank you for being here and being such a justice
I think
maven.
here is where I pass it back to
my name
Julia
is
or
Craig
to
Morantz. I'm
Sabrina.
a Reformed rabbi. I serve Emmanuel Congregation almost 4 years now.
Julia?
And
Me.
I am pleased to shepherd a community that cares a lot
right,
about
everyone.
being
It's
a
me again.
collective
Hello.
force for good. We use that
so
phrase often,
now what
but it's really
we're going to
important
talk
that we live
about
up
is
to
that
it. So
unfair regressive taxes
one of the ways
have
that
a
we
racist
see ourselves
history.
living up to it is through our
that really
collaboration
continues
with
today.
JCUA. So
You
I'm
know,
pleased to
part of this, of course,
welcome you all
happens
here.
with
And
elections
in
and
particular,
voter
Sabrina,
issues.
I'm proud of you
Emma, if you
and
want to go to the
your
next
colleagues
slide
at
for
JCUA.
me.
So thank you all. Nice to be here with you.
So
how's that?
You know, specifically,
Perfect.
Great. Really thinking
And
about,
then actually just for
time, I want to make sure that we get through the presentation. So this
if
racist
folks want
history
to,
of maybe, you know, if they want to say
1890s, for example, it was
why
illegal to
they
keep
are
African
interested,
Americans
why they
voting
came
in
here
southern
tonight. If you
states
want to
where that
put that in the
taxes,
chat,
right, were essentially a
and then we
voting
can
fee.
kind of read through
Also,
those. I
the
can read some of
over-assessing
those
of
property
folks know
owned
how
by
to use
African
the chat
Americans in the
1970s.
It will be, and then compounded on each of these regressive taxes are factors sort of a little a bubble with 3 dots in it.
Wealth
If you
building
click on
in
that,
communities
it'll
of
open up
color.
the chat. So you know how we see that today, why they decided to come tonight. You'll see some really clear trends. Like, you know, what do we notice? See why we're all here about this graph. Great, curious to hear what the initiative is about. Fantastic, love that. An hour of Torah a day. White folks and Asian folks are making in our salaries compared to Hispanic, Latinx folks and African Americans. A few more folks, and from 1967 to 2014. Hi, Carol, member. And you know, I'd like for you all to take note of is looking at the disparities in wealth as separated by race, and to have tax breaks on investment income, such as dividends, capital gains, and inheritances, which are disproportionately owned by
I'm Bill
white
Goodman.
people,
I'm a member of
have
Emmanuel
been cut and
Congregation. I go
lowered
by, you
much
can call
more
me
than
Bill,
taxes on
and
income from
invited
work,
by Rabbi Morantz,
as
who's
well
a good friend of
as
mine
thinking
too.
about regressive taxes can be a barrier to wealth building for communities of color. Great. And so thinking about, we'll get started. So glad to have you all here. That's a great question. I don't know if we can find that the source of this data specifically. Emma, if you want to move us to our next slide, please. Get back to that.
Yeah, we can send out the sources after the presentation for people who are curious.
So I'm just going to tell us a little bit about what the JCUA is. So JCUA stands for the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, and it was founded in 1964. Really thinking about in reaction to our social poverty, racism, and anti-Semitism. Right. In partnership with under the previous administration's budget cuts.
Specifically,
we've seen
we
mental
were
health treatment
started
facilities
in
domestic
reaction
violence
to
shelters,
lending
having been forced to
practices
shut their doors.
for Black families on the south side
Healthcare
of
providers
Chicago,
have struggled to serve patients,
and
making sure
40,000
that Black families were able
couldn't
to
receive the affordable
own
care that they
homes
needed,
and not just rent.
and
So
7,500
that's
higher education jobs
part of
were
our
lost.
that's our founding history, and
And
one
I
of the
think
things that we do as an
unfortunately we'll
organization
see
is
that this is going to continue
have members
right now
and
as
so
we enter
Ari,
these times as
Sabrina
more
and I are
and more folks
members
are
of
filing for unemployment,
JCUA,
and
we all
other
get to
services are going to
choose
continue to be cut. So
what our
thinking about
campaigns are
how
as an
crucially we're going to
organization.
need
So
this.
this
This
year,
year,
one
one
of our
of our
major campaigns we're focusing on is the fair tax
really important
campaign,
here,
which we will
definitely
talk a lot about very
so if
soon.
we'll go to
the
the next slide.
We also
here.
work with police accountability and immigration reform, as well as erasing the gang database.
So,
really important work
what is a fair
in
tax
Chicago?
for
Great to see,
all
Carol, that you're also a
Illinoisans
member of JCUA.
Illinoisans
Fantastic.
mean?
I can see some of the
that
chat,
this
so I'll
means
try to
that
refer to
lower
them if I
income
can.
earners will pay a lower tax
Emma,
rate,
if you want to go to
while
the next
higher
slide for me.
income earners will pay a higher tax rate.
Thank you so much.
We
so
believe that it is
the reason why we have
is
this slide up
fundamentally
here is that
because it ensures that the
JCUA
wealthy
is
pay a
part of a
greater
coalition
share,
of 22
and the burden
groups,
is then lifted
that's
off
as of
middle
December
and
1st,
working class
2019,
families.
that comprise the vote yes for fair
97%
tax
of Illinois
ballot
residents
committee.
will see no income
I'm realizing
tax
now,
increase,
and maybe I just missed
with a
this part
majority
my
of
notes, that
middle
I
and
haven't
lower
quite
income
explained
families
what the
receiving
Fair
a
Tax Act is
cut.
yet. Is that my job?
Emma,
is that
only those
making
making over $250,000 a year will
I'll be
pay
getting
more.
into it in a little
We have
bit.
a great
Yeah, you
graph
can
in
just
the
talk
next
about
slide,
this
which
slide
will
and
really
I'll
break
explain
that
the fair
down,
tax referendum soon.
which
Great.
I will
Okay, perfect.
back
Thanks.
to,
We're learning as we go here, folks. So thanks for
Julia.
bearing with us.
I neglected to mention last time.
So what I think is great about
the
this
previous
is you
slide
can
just made me
see
think of it.
we're in
as,
a group
the bottom
of really
20% of Illinois
fantastic
earners pay a
organizations that
higher
are also
percentage of their
backing
income in
the
taxes
Fair Tax
than in
Act,
any other
the Fair
Midwestern
Tax
state.
campaign.
And
So
we're going to
you
talk
might
about
see
the
some
neighbors as
organizations
well, but
recognized up here, like One North
it's right to
Side,
think about
the
this as a
People's
problem
Lobby,
of tax burden
United Working
and thinking about
Families,
it through an equity
the
lens.
Coalition, Chicago
So in this slide,
Coalition for the Homeless.
there's
So
going to be another
we're in
perspective
really
on
good
this slide that'll
company,
make it
and
a
other
little
organizations
more
that
simple,
are supporting
easier to understand.
this
But when you look at that
tax
lower
act.
step there, the 4.75 to
So
4.95%,
the biggest kind of broad
is
strokes
the
of this
tax
is
rate
that in
for
November
all
we're going to be
income
voting
up to
to change
$250,000
the
in the
Illinois
proposal,
Constitution,
in the
which
thing that we're going to be
Jamie
voting
Pritzker
on in
has done.
November.
But
And then
because
that
it's a
big
change to the
jump up to
Constitution, we have to vote on it as
7.75% is for
Illinois
income
residents.
that is over
To right now,
$250,000.
our
And
income
you can see
tax
the
is
breakdown
a flat
for
tax. We're all
single
taxed
and
the same
joint there
amount,
as
and
well.
we will be voting on to make this a graduated
So
income tax.
this is not
So,
for, so if
instead
you
of having
earned
folks all pay the
$250,000
same amount of
and
taxes, no matter how much money you make,
$250,001,
you make $20,000
you
a
would
year,
not
if you
be
make
taxed
$2
entirely
million
at
a year, everyone's
7.75%.
right now in the state
Just
of Illinois
that
is paying
part
the
that
same tax.
surpasses the
And so this
$250,000
change
limit.
will make it so that we're a graduated income tax.
So
You
go to the
wanna
next slide,
move
please.
to the next one.
So here you see the same thing. Those first three
so
bars show you
here we
income that's
have,
being
I
taxed
would love
between
to have three
4.75 and
folks
4.95%.
share out, and
And
really
then
grounding,
once you
obviously,
jump above
where we are in this
$250,000,
time,
that is
as
the
folks
area
are
that's
in our
getting
homes, we're
taxed at that
sheltering in
higher rate,
place.
according to the
Would
proposal.
love to have a few people share
this
out
mirrors
reflections
the federal
for these
approach to
questions.
taxes.
The first
And
question
this is where we start
where
to
would you want
apply
to
equity to it and
prioritize
say, if you have
investment
more,
if there
you
was
should
more money
lend
in the
us more
state
of your
budget?
toilet paper.
And the second question is, how does the
Sorry,
COVID-19
give me a second to
pandemic
catch up on my
impact your viewpoint?
So for people who are making
And Rabbi, I
$300,000 a
actually
year,
think
you're
you
not
might have
taxed
the capability
entirely
to
at
do this. Can you just mute
7.75%.
everyone
It's
for now?
only that
So
last
I'm getting some
$50,000
feedback.
that's
I
taxed
don't know
at that
if
rate.
you know how
Let's
to
go
do
on to
that.
the next slide.
Well, we might do that just so we don't have any background noise.
So 97% of Illinoisans are not going to have a tax increase. The
So
people
if
who are
folks
making
want
more than
to
$250,000 a
maybe
year will
in
pay
the
more.
chat or
And what's more is when you look at this also reduces
want
the
to
burden
share
on people with lower income,
some of
because
the reactions
if you
to
are in
these
those much lower
questions, or
percentiles,
you
you're
can take
actually going
yourselves
to end
off
up
mute.
paying a little bit
Again,
less.
where
And
would you want to
if you're like
prioritize
me,
investment
when you see
if
this
there
slide, you
was
start
more money in the
wondering,
state
well,
budget?
how many people is that? And are you really going to make up
And
for all
how
that money you're
does the
losing at the bottom
COVID-19
end
pandemic
and
impact your
replace it to
viewpoint?
the top?
So
We're
I'd
about
love
to get to
to
that.
hear from
Let's go to
a
the
few
next slide.
folks from these questions.
So this goes to what our
where the
neighbors are
money will
doing.
come from
We are
because
not
of
innovating in this
COVID-19.
space. We are catching up to it,
Great question.
and it mirrors what's going on at the federal level.
Love that. So more
Okay,
money
let's
for
go to the
emotional
next
education and
slide.
mental health. That's where you'd want to prioritize that money.
So we
Great.
all know about the budget crisis that we have,
Also
that we
emergency
had
medical care,
before
non-emergency medical
COVID-19,
care for
and
more
you were
Chicago
all
South
right in
sides.
pointing out in the
Love
chat
that.
box before that we don't even know how this is going to affect
Urban
things
gardening, great.
in the future.
Yeah, we're
But I
definitely
find
only
it
beginning to appreciate
promising
the
that
damage
this
from
helps to
COVID-19 and
identify
understanding
a
elected
revenue
impact.
stream for Illinois, while also talking about
Anybody else want to
how we
share?
can right the ship in
These are
terms
great.
of equity.
Money for
So
homeless and
the
hunger
fair tax actually
programs
generates
should
more
come
money.
from
It nets
taxes.
more money for
Yeah.
the budget.
Great.
Referring back to the problem that I cited on the previous slide,
Fantastic.
and it's only affecting people who are at that top level, 3%.
Great. So I think, you know,
having
this reaction really,
having that kind of
you know, thank
exchange
you
in a
so much
state
for
like
sharing.
Illinois,
And I think this
if you
really
wanted to
helps
compare
ground
it to a
us for the
place
larger
like New
conversation,
York or other places that
understanding
have
that
enacted this, it has
we have a
not
long way to
driven away
go
the
and
rich out of
the
Illinois,
things that we need to
or
fund
out
in
of the other
Illinois,
states, I
and
should say.
also understanding that
The
this
3.4
that this
billion
pandemic is really
3.4
impacting what our state is
billion is the
capable
budget
of
crisis.
right now
That's
and what
not
we'll be capable
3.4
of in the
billion in new
future.
revenue.
So now I'm going
That's
to
just the first
pass
bullet
it
point, Luke.
over to
Replying
Ari,
to
who will
your
lead our
thing.
next section.
I don't know if we have a slide that has the projected. Hey everybody, I should
The
be
fair tax
unmuted
would
now.
help
The state
if I
generate
can get a thumbs up from
3.4
someone.
billion a year.
If
Is
you're
that
like
right,
me,
Emma?
Yep.
Looking forward to tonight because it is
giving
the most
me a
structured
thumbs up,
part
so
of
that's
today.
what the projection is. I don't have that.
The only
in
thing
front of
that's
me.
been giving me
Reading off
grounding
notes
all
here,
day,
sorry.
besides dinner.
Next slide.
And I still took a mint, even though I knew it was going to be just a Zoom call.
So
I really
here's where
prepared.
we can go back and think about all your
It's great
budget
to
priorities
see everybody.
that you
Thank you for
identified
doing
in the
this.
beginning about
What we're going to talk about right now
is
is the referendum itself.
and I
that
alluded
we've been talking
before
about, fair
to
tax
how
bill.
Pritzker had
And I'm
already
going to
mapped
explain
out where some of this
give you a couple
funding
of different
would go.
perspectives on it.
Funding schools
And
adequately is something
if
that
you
we're
have
only
something
going
to take
be able
notes
to get
with
to
ask
over many
questions
years
later,
of
that's
of
fine.
gradual
We'll put in some
investment.
time to.
But he already had
entertain those
$100 million.
questions. But I'm going to try to go through it at a
budgeted for
decent
this
enough
pending
clip so that the Bill, who's on the phone
pending
and doesn't get
passage
to
of this
see the
referendum.
slides, doesn't lose the thread of what we're talking.
This will give you a lot of space to advocate for the things where you think the money
So
should
tonight,
go.
when you're thinking about
for
the
many
state of
years,
social
just for
service
one.
funding in Illinois, a lot of you have already talked about things that are getting hit.
Normally,
with
if we were in a
various
big group
deficits that
and we
have
were all
been
together,
defunded
I
or
would want to
underfunded
engage you
over
all
the
in a-
years,
in a-
and all of us are concerned about how COVID
in a conversation
is
about
going
how
to
you think
affect
the
this
money
in the
could be
future.
spent to better benefit communities.
But I would love to see
What's
some,
important about the fair
quick
tax
ideas in the
referendum
chat
is
box,
that
and I'll catch
if
up on the
voters
other comments that
equip
you've
politicians to make this
constitutional change, it will permit
would you
them
apply
to create a whole new revenue stream in Illinois that can help the budgets immensely. In fact, if you go back before COVID-19, some of the early budgeting messaging that Pritzker was putting out there was already hopefully counting on some money that was coming.
You know, there's a comment
I
here that
apologize.
this might have more to do with balancing the budget and less about fair taxes.
Money that was
That's
already
fair, and I
slated
think
to
balancing
come
the budget or
pending
having
the
the
passage
latitude to do
of
so
this
could be
bill.
a real
So
boon
he's
for
in
Illinois.
favor of this. Other politicians are in favor.
Medicare for all is a
And it
suggestion
could help
from,
to support
from
some
Debbie.
of those same issues that you talked about before. Next slide, please.
Goes to building the bridges out of the fallen trees, as the rabbi
This is coming
was,
up for voter
talking about
approval on
before.
November 3rd.
Let's go on to the next
And
slide.
it'll be on your ballot along with the presidential election that I know is on
Here we
everybody's
go.
mind.
And now I'm going to pass it over to Sabrina.
So we should have decent turnout for this, but we need to make sure that that voters are educated about the
one of the big
importance of
reasons
this
why
so that they don't
JCUA as
blow
an
off the
organization
referendum when
is
they see it.
compelled to take on
A
this
lot of the
issue
things that are
is
down
because
ballot
this
don't
is
get
an
the proper
inherently
attention.
Jewish issue.
Presidential elections
There's the
do
phrase
get
tzedek
a lot
tzedek
of voter turnout.
which is from
This
Deuteronomy
slide bill, we're showing a
16:20,
difference between
and it
equality and
translates as
equity.
justice, justice
Instead
shall
of
you
explaining the
pursue.
whole graphic to you,
It's
I'd rather you
incredibly
just walk
important to
away with the
engage the Jewish
understanding that
community in
while
economic justice because this is
a
an issue
tax
that
that
affects
asks everyone to
everyone,
pay the same
regardless of
percentage
whether you
doesn't
pay income taxes
necessarily
or
mean
not,
that
or
you're
whether you're
taxing
young
everybody
or
according
old,
to their needs,
regardless of race
or
and so
that
forth.
you're funding people according to their
You
needs.
go to the next
We
slide.
have an equal tax. We don't have an equitable tax. We are actually taking more from people
So,
who have less.
The word tzedakah is often
despite the
translated
equal
as charity,
percentage.
but it comes from tzedek, which means justice
And so you can
or
think about
fairness.
equity in both in terms
It's always
of
been a
what
commandment
we're
to
asking
make
people
sure
to
that
pay
you're
in
doing
terms of taxes,
what you
but
need to
also in
provide for
terms of
society.
how we're funding
I mean, a
things. We talk
community
about
can't
equity in
stand
schools
alone,
a lot,
after
and whether
all.
people are getting what they need.
So, for example, the Israelite farmers are
Next slide,
commanded
please.
to not completely harvest the corners of their field,
Since a
or
progressive
leave
tax is based
all
on
of their
the ability to pay,
crops to go into their storehouses, but
it
to
may
leave them
seem
for
like
the
it's
poor and the
fair to ask
stranger.
everybody to pay this
You should provide for others and make
4.95%
sure that
income
everyone
tax
has
that
enough.
goes across the board. But
They're also
when you look a little bit closer, you'll find that people
mentioning
who are
that,
in lower income brackets
in
are
fact,
actually
not
giving
leaving
away,
part of your land was considered stealing from the poor.
a bigger share
and leaving
of
a
their
piece of your land that
income.
is hard
it's
to
not a bigger share in
access,
terms of
or
percentage,
not
because,
making
as
sure
we
people
discussed,
knew it
that's
was there for the
flat.
taking is still
But
stealing.
that 4.95%
Yes, food
matters
is
a lot more to people.
a metaphor
who
for
are
money in
bringing
this
less money.
situation.
Let's look at the next slide.
Next slide, please.
So take a look at this.
Okay.
The blue stripes that you
Math,
see
my
in the
favorite.
first and last
This is
bars
a
there is
slide
a little bit confusing.
depicting
That's
what we
actually
need as an
meant to just be the
organization
texture
in order
of
to make this
the
campaign
coding. It's not
successful.
actually showing a
Because
broken
we're
bar
part
there.
of a ballot committee,
But what
we're
I want
trying
you to
to collect a
understand
certain
from
amount
this is that
of
if you
voters
look at
that
the
say
bottom,
yes
you'll
to
see
fair
that the
tax.
first four bars are
So
equal 20
we have
20%
the first threshold
of,
where you
of
need
the total body of
50%
Illinois taxpayers.
or more
And then
of
it gets
all
divided and
ballots
divided and divided
cast
until you see the very top 1%.
to
And how
get
much
about
money in terms of
2.98 million
income, what
yes
the
votes.
what income ranges each of those percentiles
Then
is,
we could
bringing
also
in.
reach
And that
60%.
lowest 20%
I mean, 60 is even better than
constitutes
50.
the biggest portion
And
of
that
Illinois
would lead
payers.
to
And the top
approximately
1% is the
3.6 million
smallest,
yes
and
votes.
they're earning the most, and yet they're
this
still
means that we
paying
need about
a rather small
3.2 million
percentage.
yes votes
So this,
in
this
all
is
of
mainly
Illinois,
to
not
show
just
you
Chicago
first just
alone,
how many what the percentage
in
breakdown
order
is of the
to
taxpayers
pass
in
this
Illinois.
measure.
Let's go on to the next slide. So when you think about the burden on lower income Illinoisans, imagine that you're walking out of
this
Target,
is JCUA's personal
and you only
commitment
able to get your
achieve
hands on one roll of toilet paper,
3,300 yes votes,
and you're walking
from
next to somebody
voters.
else who is able to walk
And
away
we have
with
3
1,000 rolls
phases
of
that are
toilet
currently
paper.
displayed.
And Governor Pritzker comes
And
up
we
to
were
you and
hoping
says,
from January
okay,
to March
can you
to
each give
achieve
me your fair percentage?
320
And you both
yes
tear off
votes, which
4.95% of
totally
your toilet
reasonable
paper and give
number.
it to him.
And
And
then
he says,
in phase
no,
3, we were
wait a minute.
hoping to
You with the
achieve
1,000 rolls of toilet paper, that's not fair. You
1,685
need to
yes
give a
votes
little bit more.
through canvassing,
Because
which
4.95%
in a dream
of this
world
one
where we're
roll,
not
that's
all
going to hurt
locked
this person
in
a lot.
an eternal
And
Groundhog
we all
Day of
know what a
quarantine
frightening
would
currency
involve
toilet paper
knocking
has
on
become right
doors
now.
and reaching
So
out to people
we
in
want to make
person.
sure that we're
But for now, I
protecting the
believe we're
people at the
transitioning
bottom
to
and that
more
they're
phone
getting
banking
that
opportunities
they're able to
and
keep
other
what they
methods
need
of
to
getting in touch
survive.
with people.
Because the people at the top are going to have plenty left over.
Everyone loves to
do
talk to
well
someone
more
when they're
than-
stuck in the
than survive.
house. Next slide.
All right, next slide, please. I think here is where I pass it back to Julia or to Sabrina.
If you're feeling interested, if you're feeling intrigued by this, there's loads of options to get involved.
Julia?
JCUA has our Fair Tax Committee,
all right, everyone,
in addition
again. Hello.
to a wide range of opportunities,
so
such as
now
our virtual pledge
we're
card.
going to talk about is
There is
that,
also phone
unfair
banking
regressive
opportunities.
taxes have a racist history.
My youth internship
that really
through JCUA is
continues
also
today.
putting together a couple of different ways to get
part
involved.
of this, of course,
We have a
happens
virtual day of
with,
action coming up,
elections and voter
which should involve
issues.
more phone banking.
Emma, if you want
or
to go to
reaching
the
out
next
to people
slide
through
for me.
email, all great ways to talk to people, because who
So,
doesn't love to talk to people?
Specifically,
you can
really
also make
thinking
sure
about,
to tell your friends, tell your family members
instances,
who are now
this
stuck in the
racist
house
history
with
of,
you to vote yes to fair
1890s,
tax.
for example, it was a legal way to keep African
Because
Americans
we are
from
trying to
voting
identify
in southern states, where that poll taxes,
3,300 voters.
were essentially a
We need
voting
all of the
fee.
help we can get.
Also, the over
Even if you don't want to phone bank,
owned by African
or if you
Americans
don't
in the
want to,
1970s,
put too much effort in
and
because
then
you're enjoying
compounded
catching
on
up on
each
your
of these
Netflix
regressive
or your
taxes
books
are a factor
or whatever
that has
you've had
systemically
going
led to
on.
challenges
Go
with
ahead,
wealth building
sign
in
the virtual
communities of
pledge card, which
color.
is linked in the chat.
So,
and
you
will
know, how
also
we see that today,
presumably be sent out afterwards.
you know, you'll see some really clear trends. Like, you know, what do we notice about
that
this
is all
graph?
I have for you.
You know, as we see
we have
here's some questions for all the
white
tons of
folks
information
and
we just
Asian
shared
folks
with everyone.
are making in
Either chat or
our
voice.
salaries compared to
Especially for poor Bill.
Hispanic, Latinx folks and African Americans, and from 1967 to 2014. And you know, I'd like for you all to take note of is looking at the disparities in wealth as separated
You guys,
by
we
race.
did it. We crushed it.
And to have tax
My
bracket,
hand
tax
has
breaks
been up.
on investment income, such as dividends, capital
Will
gains, and
you reference
inheritances,
it
which are
the
disproportionately owned
tax
by wealthy white people,
progressive
have been
tax
cut and
mirrors
lowered
what
much
we have
more
at
than
the
taxes on
federal
income
level?
from work,
You said this
as
several
well
times.
as thinking about
I want you to
regressive
explain
taxes
that,
can be a
please.
barrier to wealth
So
building
in Illinois,
for
the flat
communities of
tax means
color.
that everybody's
And
getting
so
taxed
thinking
at the
about,
I
same
know what the
rate.
flat
you know,
tax means.
Right, but
that's a
at
great
the
question.
federal level,
I
it's
don't know
more
if we can find
progressive,
the
where there's a
source of
different
this
rate
data
depending on your
specifically.
level
You
of
have an
income,
answer to that,
and
but we
each one of
can
those levels of income is
get
getting
back to
taxed
that.
at a
Yeah,
different rate.
we can send out the
So the
sources after the
federal
presentation
level,
for people who are
it
curious.
will mirror the new progressive
Um,
tax?
So,
The
and if you'll move to that next slide.
I'm sorry,
for
ask
me,
that again.
Emma.
So the federal level is more
Really
like
thinking about
the
that
progressive tax
our
that
social
we want.
services can't
Yeah, it's
afford
more
any more
progressive,
cuts, right?
like
That,
progressive or
Federal is
under
already
the
that way.
previous
Yeah.
administration's budget cuts,
Sorry, Luke, you
we've
will take
seen
it?
Yeah, the
mental
federal
health
is
treatment
already that way.
facilities,
Same as
domestic violence
several other
shelters
states around
have
us
been
pro, they
forced
stay
to shut their
taxes, but
doors.
Okay.
the federal is already a
Healthcare providers
progressive
have
tax.
struggled
Yeah.
to serve
And in
patients.
this budget that everyone's
40,000
talking
low-income
about,
children couldn't receive the affordable care
where
that they
does
needed.
affordable
And
housing fit?
7,500 higher education
Affordable
jobs were
housing, I don't know
lost.
where that is in the budget. This is not
And I
this is
think
not a budget
unfortunately
bill.
we'll
This
see
is
that
actually
this is
Yeah,
going
I
to
know it's
continue
not, but
right now as
everyone's
we
been talking,
enter these
and
times,
I'm
as
in
more and more
Jane
folks
Addams, and
are filing for
and
unemployment,
everyone's been
other
talking
services are going to continue to be
about
cut.
the,
So
you know,
thinking
what
about
we can
how
do and
crucially we're going
everything,
to
and I've
need this
listened to the
to
governor,
pass
and I haven't
will
heard
be
anything about
really,
housing.
really important.
well,
So
that's a
I'm
shame.
curious if anyone else has
So if we'll
a
go
different
to the next
perspective,
slide here.
if they've heard it or,
So,
you know,
what
or
is a
something,
fair tax
'cause
for
I
all
haven't heard it.
Illinoisans?
Does anyone else have anything to say about affordable housing and
That this
upcoming
means
budgets?
that lower
for Illinois?
income earners will pay a lower tax rate, while higher income
I'm
earners
looking
will
through, I
pay
know
a
that
higher
the
tax
Chicago
rate.
Sun-Times put out a,
we believe that it is
article
no,
that
it is
that was the one we
fundamentally
shared
fair
around,
because
right,
it ensures that the wealthy
explained a
pay
little
a
bit more about
greater
where
share,
we thought the money
and
was
the
going to go. So
burden
I'm
is then
trying to
lifted
comb
off
through that
middle
right
and
now
working
before we
class
start.
Okay.
I'll see if I can find more.
I mean,
Yes, 97% of Illinois residents will see
So if you want, you
no
could look
income
up,
tax
I don't know,
increase,
is this
with the
backwards on
majority
your
of middle
screen,
and lower income
Deborah?
families
No.
receiving a tax cut.
is that at the
And
Sun-Times?
only those
This is
making
an
over
editorial from the
$250,000
Chicago
a year will pay
Sun-Times.
more.
The title is A
We have a
Progressive
great
Tax is a
graph in the
Fairer
next
Tax.
slide, which will really
And now it's
break
up to
that
you to
down.
make it happen. And it's
What
from
date
which
is that?
I will
the
pass
editorial
back
board on May
to
30th,
Ari to explain.
2019. Thanks, Julia.
Okay, I'll look it up.
I neglected to
Thank
mention
you.
last time, and the previous slide just made me think of it, that
Any other
the bottom
questions from
20% of Illinois earners pay a higher percentage of their income
Or
in
points you wanna
taxes than in any other Midwestern state. So, and we're going to
Can I
talk
see
about
a
the
thumbs
neighbors
up
as
from
well,
people
but if you're thinking of
it's
right to
supporting
think
this?
about this as a problem of tax burden, I'm
Excellent.
thinking about it through an equity lens.
Ari, I
this
would just
slide,
add, I mean, to
there's going to be
Deborah's
another
point,
perspective
I
on this
guess,
slide that'll
you
make
know,
it
to a certain
a little more
extent,
simple, easier to
there
understand.
are
But
areas
when you
of
look at
focus
that
that
lower step
come
there,
first
the
to people's mind for
4.75
whatever
to
reason. You know,
4.95%, that is the
fair
tax rate
could
for
lead
all
to,
income up to $250,000 in
effective
the proposal,
allocation
in the thing
to
that we're going
many
to be
different
voting on in
things. I
November.
wonder if,
And then
in
that
light
big
of
jump up to
COVID-19,
7.75% is for
some of
income that
the
is
targets
over
for fair tax will
$250,000.
change,
And you can see the
perhaps
breakdown
around
for
matters of fair
single and
housing
joint
or
there as well.
unemployment or
So this is not
small
for
business
so if you
renewal,
earned $250,000
health
and
care,
$250,001,
I don't
you
know.
would
I
not
mean,
be
is it
taxed
too
entirely
early
at
to say
7.75%? Just that part
that
that
there's going to be those
surpasses
kinds of
the
shifts, or is it easy
$250,000
to
limit.
just figure out that something's going to have to?
I think it's so.
Anybody's
Go to the
guess
next
right
slide,
now,
please. What
So
effects
here you
COVID-19
see
is
the
going
same
to have,
thing.
since we're all
Those
still
first
in
three
crisis
bars show
mode.
you income that's being taxed.
However, I
between
will say
4.75
that
and
in my experience
4.95%.
working with Advance
And
Illinois
then
on schools,
once you jump
that
above $250,000,
they have
that
is
is
the
the
area
campaign
that's getting taxed.
we also
at
had
that
an
higher
equitable
rate, according to the
schools
proposal
bill that we passed
so
back in
this
2014,
mirrors
2015,
the federal approach
that we
to
worked hard
taxes.
on, but that just
And
changed
this
how
is
the
where
pie
we
was
start
sliced,
to
and we were
apply
working
equity
hard
to it and
try to
say,
make
if
the
you
pie
have
bigger,
more, you
now that
should
we have a
lend us
fairer
more
way
of
of
your
slicing
toilet
up the
paper.
pie.
And they have had to change their target of what they
Sorry,
were
give me a second
advocating
to
for in
catch
the
up on my
budget
notes.
a couple times. So for people who are making $300,000 a year, I think everything is entirely at 7.75%. We're going to have to do that part to advocate really hard for where the money should go. Let's go on to the next slide.
After today, when both the governor and the mayor were concentrating on
so 97% of Illinoisans are not going to have a tax increase. The people who are making more than $250,000 a year will pay more. And what's more is when you look at this, this also reduces the burden on people with lower income, because if you are in those much lower percentiles, you're actually going to end up paying a little bit less. And I can, if you're like me, when you see this slide, you start wondering, well, how many people is that? And are you really going to make up for all that money you're losing at the bottom end and replace it to the top? We're about to
I have
get
a question.
Let's go to the next slide.
I have a question.
I hear you. So this goes to what our neighbors are doing. We are not innovating in this space. We are catching up to it.
Is he gonna?
And it mirrors what's going on at the federal level.
Wedded to this whole thing, or I mean, how involved is he going to be?
Let's go to the next slide. I would guess. Well, so getting it so we all know about really the budget crisis that we have before COVID. Politicians wanted, because we were all right in turning to chatbots revenue that we don't even know how this is going. Yes, he has been wrapped up in this crisis, and I would be. But I find it. I would be surprised and a little suspicious that I saw him contemplating just about anything else right now. A revenue stream for Illinois, while also talking about how we can. Yeah, so I think in terms of he's hoping that it'll be passed. So he's the fair tax actually generates more money, nets more money for the budget referendum. Referring back to the problem that I cited on the previous slide, and it's only affecting people who are at that top level, 3%. Yep, having that kind of a change in a state like Illinois. Yeah, we need to have the right percentage like New York or other places. Of all the people who show up to vote, driven away the that's where the percentage out of Illinois. So it doesn't count people who didn't vote, who were eligible. The 3.4 billion with the ballot box. 3.4, we need 60% of them. Billion is the budget crisis. That's not 3.4 billion in new revenue. That's tell your first bullet point, Luke, replying to your thing. I don't know if we have a slide that has the projected. Groups out there that are actually actively. The fair tax would help the state generate 3.4 billion a year. Is that right, Emma? Okay, I don't know who is Emma. So that's what the tracking that is. JCUA, I've been tracking it in front of me. I'm reading off notes here. Sorry.
Yeah, there's definitely some opposition groups that are forming, mostly.
So here's where we can go back and think about all your budget priorities that you identified in the beginning about what you would
have a different economic analysis.
And I alluded before
what's going on in our state. But yeah, if you that's not one of the barriers that
adequately is something that we're only going to be able to get to over many years of gradual investment.
Somewhere, and then they go and Google it. Some of the first links that pop up are from opposition sources, and that has been a barrier. So that's why it's really important for you to spread the word to people in your networks and talk about the equity issues, the racial justice issues, and the potential for raising revenue and better funding services.
Normally, if we were in a big group and we were all together, I would want to engage you all in a conversation about how you think the money could be spent to better benefit.
So would you say that we should be Googling it every day to get the right websites up to the top?
Other comments that you've given to see if there are questions I can answer here.
I mean, that's not really a tactic we've talked about, but our JCUA Fair Tax website, we are constantly adding new sources to that. So that's a resource we always want people to turn to if they want to point people in the direction to get more informed about fair tax with accurate information.
We got to talk to Google. We have to talk to Google about their analytics.
There's a comment here that this might have more to do with balancing the budget and less about fair taxes.
Yeah,
that's fair, and I think balancing the budget or having the latitude to do so
that you
could be a real boon
in the
for
chat
Illinois.
as well.
Can I ask
Medicare for all
your
is a
phone
suggestion
banks that you're
from
mentioning,
Debbie.
are they virtual phone banks?
Yes. Goes to building the bridges out of the fallen trees, as the rabbi was
so you're using the
let's go on to the next slide.
You're using
here we go. And now I'm going to pass it over to Sabrina.
So the on phone, on the computer, where
one of the big reasons why JCUA as an organization is compelled to take on this issue is because this is an inherently Jewish issue. There's the phrase tzedek, tzedek, tzedek. which is
Emma,
from
I think
Deuteronomy
it's,
16:20.
I'm sorry,
So
go
You know what
ahead.
I'm
and it
talking
translates
about?
as justice,
so
justice shall you pursue.
helping put together a
It's incredibly
phone banking
important to
activity
engage
for
the
the
Jewish
youth
community in
coalition.
economic
Okay.
justice.
And
This is an issue
for ours,
that
we
affects
would plan on
everyone,
setting up a Zoom
regardless
call
of
where we
whether
first
you
like
pay income
give you
taxes
some
or not, or
information,
whether
we
you're
set
young
you
or
up,
old,
and then
regardless of
through
race and
Zoom
so forth.
and email,
Can
we
you
can
go to the
send you
next
the
slide?
various information you need, and then you make the phone calls, and hopefully we have
the word tzedakah is often
some sort of
translated
reflection
as
at the
charity,
end.
but it comes from
Okay.
tzedek, which
Answer
means
your
justice or fairness. It's
Now
always
that's
been a
different way
commandment
of
to make
doing
sure
what I
that you're
was
doing
thinking of.
what you need
But
to provide for
Adams
society.
is
I mean, a
looking
community
at
can't
phone
stand alone,
banking
after
and
all.
different ways of
So,
doing
for
it
example,
because
the
we
Israelite
have to
farmers are
train our
commanded
people
to
too,
not
and
completely
not everyone has
harvest the corners of their
computers
field
or is
or
computer
leave
set. We're just
all of
not
their
quite
crops to
up
go into
to
their
that
storehouses,
yet,
but to leave them for
but
the
we're
poor and the
working on
stranger.
it. You know, the
You should
virus
provide for
kind of
others and
took
make
us
sure that everyone
by
has enough.
surprise, and we have to work
They're
on getting our
also
senior buildings taken care of first
mentioning
of all.
that,
So,
in fact,
Deborah, can
not
I
leaving
interrupt you
part
for a
of your
second?
land was
Sorry,
considered
Charlotte,
stealing
you're
from the poor,
sharing your
and
screen
leaving
right
a
now.
piece
I
of
think
your
you
land
were
that is hard to
potentially
access
accidentally
or
doing
not
that,
making
but
sure people knew it
we
was
can
there for
all
the
see your
taking is
screen
still
right now.
stealing.
So you might want, if you, we can ask you to
Yes,
unshare
food
your
is
screen, or
a
Rabbi,
metaphor for
you
money
as
in
the
this
Can you
host
get
have
it
the
back, Craig? Yeah, please.
yeah, you have
next
the
slide,
ability
please.
to take that away.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Okay.
Sure.
Map,
what happened
my
to mine.
favorite. This
So if I'm
is
looking at view
a slide depicting
options.
what we need as an organization in
Okay, there
order
we go.
to make this campaign
Got
successful.
it.
Thank you.
Because we're part of
I
a
was
ballot
filling out.
committee, we're trying
I
to
was filling
collect a
out the
certain
form,
amount
the pledge
of
card.
voters that say yes
So I wasn't
to
paying
fair
attention.
tax.
No multitasking for the share
We
for the
have
I
presentation.
gotta
first
work on my
threshold where you
multitasking
need
skills.
50%
But thank you for
or
answering
more of
my
all
question.
ballots cast
I filled it out too.
to get about 2.98
Luke, I'm sorry,
million
you had
yes
asked for a web.
votes.
Which was the website you were
I think
wanting to
Emma
have?
mentioned the website that you
We could
you're
also reach
posting regularly
60%.
some
Oh,
I mean,
information.
60 is even better
Yeah,
than
the
50.
JCUA page. I'll post the
And
link
that would
to that right
lead
now.
to approximately
that's what I was asking.
3.6 million
Great.
yes votes.
Any other
And
questions
this
we
means
can
that we
help
need
answer?
about 3.2 million yes votes in all of Illinois,
Yeah,
not
hopefully,
just Chicago
so we'll
alone,
ask you sign this yourselves, and then as I think,
in order to
Sabrina
pass
and
this
Emma
measure.
said maybe too, that we'll ask you to you
Next
know,
slide.
share this with your friends, your family, your neighbors, folks who are registered voters here in the state of Illinois, so we can be sure to get these to get this passed.
Okay, this is JCUA's
One more
personal
question.
commitment
Do you know
to
already
achieve
how the referendum
3,300
question
yes
is
votes
worded?
from voters.
That's a great question.
We have
don't yet,
3
Emma, is that right?
phases that are
And I
currently
think we're
displayed.
not even sure
And we
how
were
it's gonna
hoping from
appear on
January
the
to March
ballot
to
yet. I think
achieve
that's
I mean, some people say
320
something tax
yes
and they won't
votes,
even read
which
it. They'll vote no. Right?
totally reasonable number.
right.
And then in phase 3, we were hoping to achieve
That's why we
1,685 yes votes through canvassing, which in a dream world where we're
Go ahead,
not
Emma.
all locked in an eternal Groundhog Day of quarantine.
Yeah, I was going to say that's why
would involve knocking
it's
on
gonna
doors
be the
and
word
reaching out to
fair
people in person.
before tax,
But for now, I believe we're
as a way to
transitioning
get
to
people
more
reading
phone
and
banking
engaging more with
opportunities
it,
and other
looking at
methods of getting in
fairness,
touch with
and how
people,
that pairs with
because
tax.
everyone loves to talk to someone when they're stuck in the house. Next slide.
Emma, it's for the voting, if it's a percentage of the people who vote on that particular item, correct?
If you're feeling interested, if you're feeling
Yeah, there's the
intrigued by
two
this,
thresholds. There's
loads of options
people
to get
who
involved.
vote on the question, then
JCUA
number
has
of
our
overall
Fair
ballots
Tax
cast.
Committee, in addition to a wide range of
Thank you.
opportunities, such as our virtual pledge card. There is also phone banking opportunities. My youth
we at
internship
Emmanuel
through
pledged
JCUA is
to,
also putting together a
pass the word
couple of different
around.
ways
We're
to get
gonna
involved.
post this
We have a virtual day of
wonderful,
action coming up, which should involve more phone banking,
respect-worthy
or reaching out
presentation
to people through email.
onto
All
YouTube.
great ways to talk
That's
to
okay.
people, because
And
who doesn't love
hopefully we'll be able
talk to
to
people?
spread the message that
also
way, but
make
also
sure
from the
to
BEMA
tell your friends, tell your family
and
members
study
who are
and,
now stuck in the
other
house with
places,
you to vote yes
people
to
in
fair
our
tax.
Tikkun Olam team will pass the
Because
word.
we are trying to
and,
identify 3,300
we're
voters.
pleased to have the
We need
opportunity
all
to
of
do
the help
this.
we can get.
I think there's real justice
Even if you don't
and
want a
equity
phone bank,
in this,
or if you don't want to,
amendment.
put too much effort in because you're
and,
enjoying
you know,
catching up on your
we want our voices to be
Netflix
counted.
or your books or
Rabbi?
whatever you've had
Yes,
going
ma'am.
on.
When
Go
you
ahead,
post it
sign
on
the virtual pledge card, which is
YouTube,
linked in the chat.
does it show the chat?
And will also presumably be sent out afterwards.
Thank you.
Chats are not, no.
And that is all I have for you.
I want to make sure that if there are any other
Yeah.
There's
questions
some questions for all the tons of information.
for our
we just
fine
shared with
panel of
everyone.
experts here,
Oh, yeah.
Either chat or
I want to lay
voice,
those out.
Thank
especially
you.
for poor Bill.
Well, I take a
I
cue.
have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
You said some of the numbers were not quite right. After you get those
there no
checked or
questions?
fixed, would you share those again with us?
You guys, we did it. We crushed
Wait a
it.
minute.
Oh,
I
done.
have
From
a
the
question
slides?
in chat, and my hand
I'm
has
sorry.
been up.
Say that again. What are you asking?
Bill, you
There were some
referenced
comments about
it
some of the
mirror-
numbers
the
and percentages
tax-
on some of the
progressive
slides.
tax
And there were
mirrors
comments on
what
them.
we have
I think
at
it was
the
specifically
federal
the
level. You said this
someone
several
had raised that
times.
the
I want you to
salary
explain
the
that,
I think
please.
the salary those
So
numbers
in Illinois, the
were,
flat tax
I
means
imagine
that
maybe they're
everybody's
just
getting
outdated and
taxed at the
not-
same
I know what the
not
flat tax
fully
means.
incorrect.
Right, but at the
1.1,
federal
1.9
level,
for
it's more
2020.
progressive, where
So
there's a
Emma,
different rate
maybe we can
depending
make a
on
note
your
of
level
that
of
and
income,
we
and
can
each one of those levels of income is getting taxed at a different rate.
most updated
So the
numbers
federal
for
level,
2020.
it will
Thank you.
mirror the
Yeah.
new
Yeah.
progressive tax.
From an annual
The,
perspective, you can also mention what
I'm sorry, ask that again.
that y-axis is
federal
in terms of
level
salary.
is more
If,
like
you know, because you
the
mentioned it, but it doesn't say on the
progressive
slide
tax
that
that we
it's
want.
like an average
Yeah, it's more
salary or
progressive.
whatever the
Like
actual
progressive
number.
or
Federal is
regressive.
already that way.
No,
Yeah.
it's great feedback.
Sorry, Luke,
This
you
is
will take
this
it?
is
the
our
federal
first
is
time doing
already
a
that
virtual
way, same as
presentation,
several
so
other
we
states
appreciate the
around us
feedback too.
where they state taxes.
Yeah.
But
Oh, really?
federal
You
is already a
did really
progressive
well.
tax. Yeah.
And in this
Kola
budget
Kavod.
that everyone's
Yeah.
talking
Might I
about,
close with
where
a word or
does
two
affordable housing
of
fit?
thanks and a little Torah?
Affordable housing. I don't know where that is in
so
the
I
budget.
was,
This is not a
inspired
budget bill. This is
throughout,
actually
Yeah, I know it's
by
not,
the
but everyone's been
clarity
talking, and I'm in
confidence that
Jane
you brought
Addams,
this
and
moment. So
and everyone's
as I
been
look around my
talking
squares,
about
Sabrina
the, you know,
and
what we
Julia
can do
and Ari
and everything, and I've
Emma
listened to the governor, and I haven't heard
well,
anything
who
about
else?
housing.
Brian
So
representing
I'm just
both
curious
JCUA
if
and
anyone else has a
Emmanuel.
different perspective.
And anybody else here from JCUA, we
They've heard
appreciate
it or,
your
you know,
time
or
and your wisdom and
something,
your passion,
'cause I
and your
haven't
commitment to
heard it.
justice. And I
Does
think
anyone else
of
have anything to say about
the
affordable housing in
verse
upcoming budgets
that Sabrina
for Illinois?
read, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. And
I'm
I think
looking
of the
through, I
great
know
legacy
that
of
the
Martin Luther
Chicago
King Jr.,
Sun-Times put out
who talked about injustice
article
anywhere
that
was a
that
threat
was the one we
to
showed
justice
around,
everywhere.
right, that
And as we
explained
move
a little bit
into
more about
our
where we thought the money
Zman
was going to go. So
Cherutenu,
I'm
our
trying
season
to
of
comb through
freedom,
that right now.
our Passover
before we jump in.
celebration,
I'll see if I can find
we
more. Yes,
recognize that a lack of freedom
So if you want, you
anywhere
could look up,
is a lack of
I don't know,
freedom
is
for
it
us all.
backwards
And it
on your
seems to me
screen,
that
Deborah?
No.
those who are burdened
Is
unduly
that up the
with the
Sun-Times?
pressures of
This is an
taxation
editorial from the Chicago Sun-Times. The
are treated
title is A
unfairly.
Progressive
And
Tax
those
is
who
a
do
Fairer
not
Tax.
carry
And now
their
it's
fair
up to you
share
to make it happen. And it's
What
from
date
are
is
not
that?
acting
the
justly.
editorial board on May
And a
30th,
society that enables
2019.
both
Okay, I'll
has
look
work
it
to
up.
do. And
Thank you.
so
Sure.
as we enter into our Zman Cherutenu,
Any other
it's
questions
vital
from
for
people?
us to bear in mind that such
Or
burdens
points you want to
exist,
make?
and we have work to do if we're going to make our freedom really worthwhile.
Could I see a
And
thumbs up from people
you
if
can understand
you're
they're not
thinking
totally
of
free
supporting
until
this?
we move some of these things forward and help people have more equity
Excellent.
in the world, and ultimately more justice. Ari, I would just add, I mean, to Deborah's point, I guess, you know, to a certain extent, as this in Pesach, there
enjoy
are
this kind of
areas
new
of
world
focus
that come
forcing
first
us
to
to
people's
people's mind
mind
for whatever reason,
ways.
you know.
But the
that
thing that
fair
remains
tax
is the
could
work
lead to
of healing the world, and pursuing justice.
we're not quite
effective
done
allocation
with that work.
so
To many
struggle
different
on.
things. I wonder if,
Stay well.
in light of
This is amazing.
COVID-19, some
Thank you
of
for having
the
us, Rabbi.
targets.
Thanks,
are
everyone.
flexible.
Thank
Look
you
forward to
very
the
much.
next opportunity to
Perhaps
study
around
with you
matters
and to
of
learn
fair
with you,
housing
or
Thank you,
unemployment,
Sabrina.
or
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you for
coming.
taking the time.
anybody else,
small business renewal,
Thank you, Julia, Ari,
healthcare,
Brian, thank
You
you all at JCUA.
I don't know. I mean, is
everybody
it
else
too
for coming.
early to say?
Bye.
Bye.
I know.
Bye.
Be around, but
There's
there's
going to be those kinds of shifts, or is it easy to
Thank you. Stay well,
just
everybody.
figure out
Be
that
well.
something's going to have to?
I think it's anybody's guess right now what effects COVID-19 is going to have, since we're all still in crisis mode. However, I will say that in my experience working with Advance Illinois on schools, that they've had a campaign we also had an equitable schools bill that we passed back in 2014, 2015, that we worked hard on, but that just changed how the pie was sliced. And we were working hard to try to make the pie bigger now that we have a fairer way of slicing up the pie. And they have had to change their target of what they were advocating for in the budget a couple times, even before COVID-19 happened. So I think everything is going to hit the fan, and we're going to have to do our part to advocate really hard for where the money should go.
And after today, when both the governor and the mayor were concentrating on how many people, like the African American community on the South Side has been so hit by this virus, and there's many reasons, I'm wondering if that's going to affect, because they need, healthcare facilities and hospitals. They need so much more. So I'm wondering if that's going to have any effect. They need housing too.
I have a question.
I hear you.
The governor has been so preoccupied by coronavirus. Is she still wedded to this whole thing, or how involved is she going to be in helping get this passed?
I would guess, so getting it passed is not really his job. The politicians want it because it's going to turn into revenue for the state. Yes, he has been wrapped up in this crisis, and I would be surprised and a little suspicious if I saw him concentrating on just about anything else right now. Yeah, so I think he's hoping that it'll be passed. He's for it, but the politicians can't do anything about it until we pass it as a referendum.
The referendum is November 3rd, right?
That's right.
And it needs 60%?
Yep.
At this time, November 3rd.
Yeah, we need to have the right percentage of all the people who show up to vote. That's where the percentage comes from. So it doesn't count people who didn't vote, who were eligible to vote. It's just anybody who shows up at the ballot box, we need 60% of them to vote for passage.
Okay.
So tell your friends.
Are there any groups out there that are actually actively opposing this? It seems like something that should pass.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who is. Emma, have you been tracking that? Has JCUA been tracking opponents?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely some opposition groups that are forming, mostly folks that are just more fiscally conservative and have a different economic analysis of what's going on in our state. But yeah, that's not one of the barriers that we've been running into with our organizing and our coalition, is that sometimes if people just hear about fair tax somewhere and then they go and Google it, some of the first links that pop up are from opposition sources, and that has been a barrier. So that's why it's really important for you to spread the word to people in your networks and talk about the equity issues, the racial justice issues, and the potential for raising revenue and better funding services in our state that you learned about here, because there also is other information out there that is not friendly to the passage of this amendment.
So would you say that we should be Googling it every day to get the right websites up to the top?
That's not really a tactic we've talked about, but at our JCUA Fair Tax website, we are constantly adding new sources to that. So that's a resource we always want people to turn to if they want to point people in the direction to get more informed about fair tax with accurate information.
We got to talk to Google. We have to talk to Google about their analytics to make sure our stuff raises to the top.
Exactly.
Yeah, they change that all the time. Can you post the link to the site that you mentioned in the chat as well, please?
Can I ask you, your phone banks that you're mentioning, are they virtual phone banks?
Yes, it's not in person.
They're all virtual.
They're all, so you're using the, you're using, I'm trying to explain. So the on phone, on the computer where the script is and everything, and it comes through the computer, the phone numbers, or the people it clicks on and all that.
Emma, I think it's, I'm sorry.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so I'm helping put together a phone banking activity for the Youth Coalition.
Okay.
And for ours, we would plan on setting up a Zoom call where we first give you some information, we set you up, and then through Zoom and email, we can send you the various information you need, and then you make the phone calls, and hopefully we have some sort of reflection at the end.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Now that's a different way of doing what I was thinking of. Because Jane Addams is looking at phone banking and different ways of doing it, because we have to train our people too, and not everyone has computers or is computer savvy. We're just not quite up to that yet, but we're working on it. You know, the virus kind of took us all surprised, and we have to work on getting our senior buildings taken care of first of all.
Yeah.
So, Deborah, can I interrupt you for a second? Sorry, Charlotte, you're sharing your screen right now. I think you are potentially accidentally doing that, but we can all see your screen right now. So you might want, we can ask you to unshare your screen, or Rabbi, you as the host.
Can you get it back, Craig? Yeah, please.
Yeah, you have the ability to take that away.
Yeah, so let's do that.
I don't know what happened to mine.
So if I'm looking at view options. Okay, there we go.
All of a sudden I lost my share.
There you go.
I was filling out the form, the pledge card. So I wasn't paying attention.
No multitasking for the presenter.
I gotta work on my multitasking skills.
Hey, but thank you for answering my question.
I filled it out too.
Great. Luke, I'm sorry, you had asked for which was the website you were
I think Emma mentioned the website that you're posting regularly some information.
Yeah, the JCUA page. I'll post the link to that right now.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Easy that way.
Great. Any other questions that we can help answer? And hopefully, so we'll ask you sign this yourselves, and then as I think Sabrina and Emma said maybe too, that we'll ask you to share this with your friends, your family, your neighbors, folks who are registered voters here in the state of Illinois, so that we can be sure to get these to get this passed in November.
One more question: Do we know already how the referendum question is worded?
That's a great question. We don't yet, Emma, is that right? And I think we're not even sure how it's going to appear on the ballot yet. I think that's.
I mean, some people say something tax and they won't even read it. They'll vote no, right?
Right.
Yeah, our director has been trying to.
That's why it's going to be called the.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Emma.
Were we, Deborah? Yeah, I was going to say that's why it's going to be the word fair before tax as a way to get people reading and engaging more with it, looking at fairness and how that pairs with tax.
Emma, it's for the voting, if it's a percentage of the people who vote on that particular item, correct?
Yeah, there's the two thresholds. There's people who vote on the question, then number of overall ballots cast. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good question.
So we at Emmanuel pledged to pass the word around. We're going to post this wonderful and very respect-worthy presentation onto YouTube, if that's okay. And hopefully we'll be able to spread the message that way, but also from the BEMA and in study and other places. We'll get people on our Tikkun Olam team will pass the word, and I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to do this. I think there's real justice and equity in this amendment or amendments, and we want our voices to be counted.
Rabbi?
Yes, ma'am.
When you post it on YouTube, does it show the chat?
No.
Thank you.
Chats are not, no. Oh, I want to make sure that if there are any other questions for our fine panel of experts here, I want to lay those out.
Thank you.
Well, I'll take a cue.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
You said some of the numbers were not quite right. After you get those checked or fixed, would you share those again with us? From the slides?
I'm sorry, say that again. What are you asking?
There were some comments about some of the numbers and percentages on some of the slides, and there were comments on them.
I think it was specifically the someone had raised that the salary I think the salary, those numbers were, I'm imagining maybe they're just outdated and not fully incorrect. At one point were correct, maybe not incorrect for 2020. So maybe you can make a note of that and we can connect back to make sure we have that most updated numbers for 2020.
Thank you.
Yeah.
From an annual perspective, if you can also mention what that y-axis is in terms of salary, if because you mentioned it, but it doesn't say on the slide that it's like an average salary or whatever the actual number means.
Yeah, no, that's great feedback. This is our first time doing a virtual presentation, so we appreciate the feedback too.
Yeah.
Oh, really? You guys did really well. Kola kavod.
Yeah.
Might I close with a word or two of thanks and a little Torah? So I was inspired throughout by the clarity and confidence that you brought this moment. So as I look around my squares, Sabrina and Julia and Ari and Emma and who else? Brian, representing both JCUA and Emmanuel, and anybody else here from JCUA. We appreciate your time and your wisdom and your passion and your commitment to justice. And I think of the verse that Sabrina read, Tzedek, Tzedek, Tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. And I think of the great legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., who talked about injustice anywhere was a threat to justice everywhere. And as we move into our Zman Cherutenu, our season of freedom, our Passover celebration, we recognize that a lack of freedom anywhere is a lack of freedom for us all. And it seems to me that those who are burdened unduly with the pressures of taxation are treated unfairly. And those who do not carry their fair share are not acting justly. And a society that enables both has work to do. And so as we enter into our Zman Cherutenu, it's vital for us to bear in mind that such burdens exist, and we have work to do if we're going to make our freedom really worthwhile. And if we can understand that we're not totally free until we move some of these things forward and help people have more equity in the world. and ultimately more justice, then there's still work to be done. So let us enjoy Aziz and Pesach, enjoy this kind of new world that is forcing us to do Pesach in many different ways. But the thing that remains is the work of healing the world and pursuing justice. We're not quite done with that work. So struggle on, stay well. Aziz and Pesach.
Thank you for having us, Rabbi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Look
you
forward to
very
the
much.
next opportunity to study with you and to learn with you.
Thank you,
Thank
Sabrina.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
coming.
taking the
Kol
time.
Everybody else, Kol Kavod. Thank you, Julia, Ari, Emma, Brian. Thank you all at JCUA. Thanks everybody else for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
See you around.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a good night. Stay well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stay
Thanks.
well, everybody. Be well.